They said I couldn't do it. Not in those exact words, of course. People are too polite for that. But I heard it in the way they spoke to me at the funeral, their voices dropping to that particular tone reserved for the broken. "You'll need to sell," my sister whispered, squeezing my hand. "The property taxes alone will be impossible." My mother nodded in agreement, her eyes filled with pity that made my skin crawl. I was 42 years old, standing in a cemetery in the middle of nowhere, watching them lower my husband into the ground. 42, with 3 children ranging from 8 to 16, and a mountain of medical debt that had consumed our savings. The cancer had taken everything, our future, our security, our plans. Now it was taking my dignity too, in the form of well-meaning advice from people who'd already decided I would fail. My grandfather's land stretched behind me, 300 acres of rolling fields and weathered buildings. He'd left it to my husband, not to me. That detail mattered more than anyone wanted to admit. Without my husband, I was just a widow with 3 mouths to feed, and a property I had no legal claim to. The will would take months to settle. In the meantime, I had nothing but the clothes on my back and a fierce, burning refusal to accept their narrative. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of earth and rain. I looked at my children, my oldest son's jaw clenched tight, my middle daughter's tears, my youngest son's confusion. They were looking to me for answers I didn't have. They were waiting to see if I would crumble. I straightened my shoulders and made a silent promise to the ground beneath my feet. I would not sell. I would not fail. I would raise my children on this land, and I would prove every single person wrong. The lawyer's office smelled like old paper and broken dreams. I sat across from Mr. Harrison, a man who'd handled my grandfather's estate and now my husband's, and listened to words that made my chest tighten. The property was technically mine now. My husband's will had been updated after his diagnosis, a final act of love I hadn't known about until this moment. But the debt was substantial. The medical bills, the mortgage, the property taxes, they added up to a number that made my vision blur. "You have options," Mr. Harrison said carefully. "The most practical would be to sell the land. The market is strong right now. You could pay off the debts and have something left over for a fresh start elsewhere." Elsewhere. The word hung in the air like a curse. Elsewhere meant leaving the only home my children had ever known. Elsewhere meant admitting defeat before I'd even tried. "What if I didn't sell?" I asked. He looked at me over his glasses, and I saw it again, that expression of gentle pity. "The property generates no income currently. Your grandfather was a farmer, but the equipment is outdated, and the fields have been fallow for years. Without significant capital investment, I don't see how you could make it work." I left his office with a folder full of documents and a head full of questions. That night, I walked the property in the darkness, my phone's flashlight cutting through the black. The barn loomed like a sleeping giant. The fields stretched endlessly. The farmhouse, my grandfather's house, now mine, stood solid and patient. I ran my hands along the barn's wooden beams, feeling the grain beneath my palms. My grandfather had built this. He'd worked this land, raised his family here, created something that lasted. If he could do it, why couldn't I? I didn't have a plan, but I had something better. I had nothing to lose. The next morning, I called the county extension office and asked for help. The woman who answered, her name was Patricia, seemed surprised by my directness. "I'm a widow with 3 kids and 300 acres, I told her. "I need to make this land work. Where do I start?" Patricia came out the following week. She was younger than I expected, maybe mid-30s, with dirt under her fingernails, and a no-nonsense attitude that I immediately respected. She walked the property with me, asking questions, taking notes, occasionally kneeling to examine the soil. "Your grandfather took care of this land," she said finally. "The soil is good. The water access is excellent. You have infrastructure, the barn, the fencing, the house. What you don't have is a plan. So help me make one," I said. Over the next month, Patricia became my unlikely mentor. She introduced me to sustainable agriculture practices, to crop rotation, to the possibility of raising livestock. She connected me with other farmers, with agricultural grants, with resources I didn't know existed. She also introduced me to the reality. This would be hard, harder than anything I'd ever done, but I was already hard. Grief had made me hard. Desperation had made me hard. The knowledge that my children were watching to see if I would break had made me harder still. I made my first decision. I would start small. I would plant a vegetable garden, not for sale, but for survival. I would learn the land, I would prove to myself that I could do this before I attempted anything larger. My oldest son, Marcus, found me in the field that afternoon. "What are you doing?" he asked, watching me mark out garden beds. "Building our future," I said. "Want to help?" He did, and that simple act, his willingness to work beside me, became the foundation for everything that followed. The garden grew faster than I expected. Marcus worked with me every afternoon after school, his teenage resentment slowly transforming into something that looked like purpose. My middle daughter, Sarah, started a compost system. My youngest, Tommy, appointed himself the official scarecrow, a role he took with surprising seriousness. We planted vegetables we could eat and vegetables we could sell. We started small, at the farmer's market in town, with a single table and homegrown produce. The first Saturday, we made $47. It wasn't much, but it was proof of concept. It was evidence that the land could provide. The neighbors noticed, some with approval, others with skepticism. There was old Mr. Chen who lived 2 miles over, a farmer who'd been working his land for 50 years. He stopped by one afternoon and examined my garden with a critical eye. "You're doing it wrong," he said finally. My heart sank, but then he continued. "You're planting too close together, and your irrigation system is inefficient, but you've got good instincts. You're listening to the land instead of fighting it. That matters." He became another mentor, teaching me techniques he'd learned over decades. He brought equipment I needed, refused payment, and simply said, "Your grandfather helped my father when we first came here. I'm paying it forward." By the end of that first summer, we'd made enough money to cover the property taxes and a portion of the debt. It wasn't much, but it was something. More importantly, it was momentum. That night, I sat on the porch with my children, and I felt something I hadn't felt since my husband's diagnosis: hope. Not the fragile, desperate hope of someone clinging to a dream, but the solid, grounded hope of someone who'd already proven they could survive. "We're going to make it," I told them. Marcus looked at me with eyes that had aged too quickly. "I know, Mom," he said. "I've known since you started digging." By the second year, the garden had become a small farm. We'd expanded to 2 acres of vegetables, added chickens for eggs, and started selling at 3 different farmers' markets. The income was still modest, but it was growing. More importantly, my children were thriving. Marcus had become genuinely interested in agriculture. Sarah was managing the business side, keeping records, calculating profit margins, planning expansion. Tommy was learning responsibility through caring for the animals, but not everyone was happy about our success. The bank that held our mortgage sent a letter suggesting we consider their offer to refinance, at terms that would have bankrupted us within a year. The property assessor suddenly decided our land was worth significantly more, which meant higher taxes. And then there was the incident with the pesticide company representative who showed up at our gate, suggesting that our organic methods were inefficient and that we should consider their products. I realized then that our success was threatening to people who'd already written us off as failures. We were supposed to sell. We were supposed to disappear. Instead, we were proving that a widow and 3 kids could not only survive, but thrive. Patricia helped me navigate the financial obstacles. Mr. Chen introduced me to a lawyer who specialized in agricultural law, and my children, my resilient, determined children, simply worked harder. One evening, Marcus came to me with a proposal. He'd been researching value-added products. "We could make jam," he said. "Sell it at the markets. Higher profit margin than fresh produce." I looked at my 16-year-old son, this young man who'd lost his father and could have been lost himself, and I saw my grandfather in his eyes. The same determination, the same refusal to accept limitations. "Let's do it," I said. The jam was a revelation. Marcus's recipe, a blend of our berries with local honey and a hint of vanilla, sold out at every market. We couldn't make it fast enough. By the middle of the second year, we were producing 50 jars a week, and demand was outpacing supply. That's when the restaurant owner approached us. David Chen, no relation to Mr. Chen, though they'd become friends, owned a farm-to-table restaurant in the nearby town. He'd been buying our vegetables for months, and he'd tasted the jam. He wanted to feature our products on his menu. He wanted to create a partnership. "I want to tell your story," he said, sitting at our kitchen table. "A widow, 3 kids, 300 acres. You're doing something remarkable here, and people need to know about it." I was skeptical. I'd learned not to trust easy opportunities, but David was persistent, and he was genuine. He featured us in his restaurant, told our story to his customers, and connected us with other business owners who wanted to support local agriculture. Within 6 months, we had contracts with 4 restaurants. We'd hired 2 part-time employees from the community. We'd expanded to 5 acres of vegetables and were planning to add a small greenhouse for year-round production. But the most significant moment came when the bank called, not to threaten, but to congratulate. Our financial situation had improved so dramatically that they wanted to discuss refinancing our mortgage at better terms. The woman on the phone actually sounded impressed. That night, I called my children together. "We're going to make it," I said. "Not just survive, we're going to thrive." Marcus hugged me, and I felt him finally release the tension he'd been carrying since his father's death. Sarah cried, not from sadness, but from relief. Tommy simply said, "I knew we would, Mom. I always knew." By year 3, the farm had become something I'd never imagined. We weren't just producing food, we were creating community. We hosted school groups to teach children about agriculture. We offered workshops on sustainable farming. We became a gathering place for people interested in local food systems. Marcus, now 18, had decided to defer college to work full-time on the farm. Sarah was managing our business operations and had started a social media presence that was attracting attention from food bloggers and journalists. Tommy, at 11, was becoming known around town as the kid who could talk anyone into buying our products. But I was also thinking about the future in a different way. This land had been my grandfather's. It had been my husband's. Now it was mine. But what would it be for my children? What legacy was I building? I started researching agricultural education programs. I connected with universities that offered sustainable agriculture degrees. I began envisioning the farm not just as a business, but as a teaching space. A place where the next generation could learn that there was another way to live, another way to work, another way to build a life. Patricia helped me apply for grants to develop an educational component. Mr. Chen connected me with other farmers who'd successfully created apprenticeship programs. David Chen featured our educational initiatives in his restaurant, attracting volunteers and supporters. One afternoon, a young woman named Jessica came to the farm asking if we offered internships. She was 22, burned out from college, searching for something real. I hired her on the spot. Within weeks, she was part of our team, learning, growing, becoming invested in what we were building. "Why did you take a chance on me?" she asked one day. "Because someone took a chance on me," I said. "When I had nothing but determination and 3 kids, people believed in me. Now I get to do that for others." The woman who showed up at our gate on a Tuesday morning was my sister. I hadn't seen her in 2 years, not since the funeral. She looked uncomfortable, out of place in her designer clothes and manicured nails, standing in the middle of our working farm. "I wanted to see it," she said simply. "What you've built." I gave her a tour. I showed her the expanded vegetable fields, the greenhouse, the processing kitchen where we made our jam and other value-added products. I introduced her to our employees, to Jessica the intern, to the volunteers who came regularly to help. I showed her the books, the financial records that proved we were not just surviving, but succeeding. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I didn't think you could do this. I thought you were being foolish. I thought you'd lose everything." "I almost did," I admitted. "But I didn't. And you know why? Because I didn't have a choice. I had 3 children who needed me to be strong. I had a piece of land that believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. I had people who helped me when they didn't have to. And I had something you didn't expect me to have. I had nothing to lose." My sister cried then. She apologized for her doubt, for her lack of faith. She asked how she could help. And I realized that sometimes people need to see your success before they can believe in your strength. By the end of her visit, she'd committed to investing in the farm's expansion. Not out of pity, but out of genuine belief in what we were building. It was a moment of redemption, not just for me, but for our relationship. The 3rd year brought unexpected challenges. A drought threatened our crops. Equipment broke down at critical moments. And then, in the middle of summer, Marcus got sick. It wasn't serious, a bacterial infection that required antibiotics and rest, but it terrified me. For a moment, I was back in that hospital room, watching my husband fade, feeling the ground shift beneath my feet. The fear was primal and overwhelming. Marcus recovered quickly, but the experience shook something loose in me. I realized I'd been running on adrenaline and determination for 3 years. I'd been so focused on proving everyone wrong that I hadn't stopped to breathe. That night, I sat on the porch alone, and I allowed myself to cry. Not the controlled tears of someone managing a crisis, but deep, body-shaking sobs. I cried for my husband, for the life we'd planned that would never happen. I cried for the years I'd spent in survival mode. I cried for the fear that still lived in my chest, the fear that everything could be taken away again. But I also cried for gratitude, for the land that had held us, for the community that had supported us, for my children, who'd grown into remarkable people, for the strength I'd discovered in myself. The next morning, I made a decision. I would slow down. I would hire more help so I wasn't carrying everything alone. I would take time to actually live, not just survive. Sarah found me in the kitchen. "You okay, Mom?" she asked. "I will be," I said. "I'm learning that surviving and thriving are different things. I've been surviving. Now I want to thrive." The article appeared in a major agricultural magazine, From Widow to Landowner, how one woman built a thriving farm and changed her community. It told our story, the loss, the struggle, the determination, the success. It talked about sustainable agriculture, about community resilience, about the power of refusing to accept other people's limitations. The response was overwhelming. Universities wanted to feature our farm as a case study. Agricultural organizations wanted me to speak at conferences. Food companies wanted to buy our products wholesale. Suddenly, we weren't just a local success story. We were a national one. But with recognition came responsibility. I had to decide what kind of business we wanted to be. We could scale up, could become a major supplier, could make significantly more money, or we could stay small, stay focused on community, stay true to the values that had guided us from the beginning. I called a family meeting. Marcus, Sarah, and Tommy, now 19, 17, and 13, sat around the kitchen table where we'd made so many decisions together. "We have choices," I told them. "We can grow bigger, make more money, expand significantly, or we can stay focused on what we've built. Community, education, sustainability. What do you want?" Marcus spoke first. "I want to build something that lasts, something that matters beyond just making money." Sarah nodded. "I want to create a model that other people can replicate. Show them that this is possible." Tommy simply said, "I want to keep living here. I want this to be home." We decided to stay small, to focus on quality over quantity, to use our platform to teach others how to do what we'd done. We created a formal apprenticeship program. We started hosting workshops. We documented our processes and shared them freely with other farmers. It was the opposite of what the business world would have recommended. It was also the most profitable decision we could have made because it aligned with our values. 5 years after my husband's death, I stood in the barn, the same barn where I'd made my silent promise to the ground, and I looked at what we'd built. The farm was thriving. We had a waiting list of people who wanted to apprentice with us. Our products were sold in restaurants across 3 states. We'd created jobs for 12 people in our small community, but more importantly, we'd created something intangible. We'd created proof that another way was possible, that a widow with 3 kids and a mountain of debt could not just survive, but build something beautiful and meaningful. Marcus was now managing the day-to-day operations. Sarah had started a nonprofit focused on agricultural education. Tommy was in high school, excelling in his classes, and planning to study environmental science. They'd all grown into people I was profoundly proud of. One afternoon, Jessica, our first intern, now a full-time employee and part of our extended family, asked me, "Do you ever regret not selling? Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if you'd taken the easy path?" I thought about it carefully. "No," I said, "because the easy path would have been a lie. It would have taught my children that when things get hard, you run. Instead, I taught them that when things get hard, you dig deeper. You find your strength. You build something that matters." I walked out to the fields at sunset, the same fields my grandfather had worked, the same fields my husband had inherited, the same fields I'd fought to keep. The crops were growing. The soil was rich. The future was unfolding. On the 5th anniversary of my husband's death, I gathered my children and our extended farm family, Patricia, Mr. Chen, David, Jessica, and all the people who'd believed in us when we were just a widow and 3 kids with a dream. And we celebrated. We celebrated not just survival, but transformation. We celebrated the farm that had held us, the community that had supported us, the strength we'd discovered in ourselves. We celebrated the fact that we'd proven everyone wrong. But more than that, we celebrated the future. Marcus announced his engagement to Jessica.
Sarah shared that her nonprofit had received a major grant to expand agricultural education programs. Tommy presented his science project, a study on sustainable soil management that had won first place at the state competition. As I watched my children, I thought about the woman I'd been 5 years ago, standing in a cemetery, listening to people tell me I couldn't do this. I thought about the fear, the doubt, the desperate determination that had carried me through. I'd kept my promise to the ground. I'd raised my children on my grandfather's land. I'd proven everyone wrong. But more importantly, I'd proven something to myself, that I was stronger than I knew, that loss doesn't have to define you, that sometimes the greatest victories come not from running toward something, but from standing your ground and refusing to be moved. The sun set over the fields, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. My children stood beside me, and I felt the weight of the past 5 years settle into something solid and real. This was our home. This was our legacy. This was the life we'd built together. One day at a time, one harvest at a time, one moment of determination at a time. The land had believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Now, I would spend the rest of my life honoring that faith by helping others discover their own strength, their own possibility, their own power to transform loss into legacy.